Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to SFF180. Thomas here, your host as always. I'm very sorry that there was not a mailbag yesterday. Last week it turned out to be an extremely busy week. I had to essentially relocate the entire SFF180 library that I've had in storage from Austin, from one city to another city. That involved U-Hauls and lots of driving and packing and unpacking and my aging body really being put through its paces with all of that, hauling very heavy books. But that's all over with now. And I will be having a new mailbag this coming Monday, which will be May the 1st. Yes. So today what I'm doing is something slightly different. You could call this a mailbag extra, something unusual for me. I spent the weekend before last, as some of you might remember, I went to the Ghoulish Books Festival in San Antonio, Texas. This is only in its second year. It's a very tiny, very intimate little horror book gathering, but it just had this wonderful vibe. You know, this vibe of a very small conference where it felt like you could just, get to know everybody there. And a wonderful group of folks, great fun. And so naturally I picked up a bunch of books there because a lot of independent writers are working in horror, independently publishing, so either self-publishing or through small presses like Ghoulish Books to support that work. And so, the small press is really where horror has been supported, during the Great Drought, right? So I'm going to go ahead and show you what I got. Now, I understand if horror is not your jam, that's fine. No hurt feelings here. I'll see you next Monday for the next mailbag with all the science fiction and fantasy stuff that you definitely like. I just reviewed a science fiction book, in fact, just a few days ago. It had some horror elements to it, but that was science fiction. So let's go ahead and take a look at what I got, shall we? So the first of these are two novellas from Tenebrous Press, and I've worked with them before, so it was very nice to meet them in person. And the first of these is one that I have just finished reading, and I have already posted the review at sff180.com, also through my Goodreads if you follow me there. But this is called AGONY'S Lodestone. The author is Laura Keating. Laura's published a whole lot of short fictions, but this is her debut book, her debut novella, as it were. And it's basically about a group of siblings who come together after many years after having their eldest sister go missing, and never to be seen or heard from again. And one of the siblings has now found some evidence what they think may have happened, and that evidence is an old security videotape, and then they follow on from there, and things happen, as it were. So extremely good. Like I said, go ahead and check out my review of that one. This will also be reviewed in video form very soon because I'm doing another little kind of collective review video for some good horror novellas that I've read recently. But AGONY'S Lodestone by Laura Keating comes very highly recommended. And next up from Tenebrous Press, this is Lure, which is a novella by a guy named Tim McGregor. And let's see what this one has to say for itself. It says, in the chapel of a forsaken fishing village on another world's shore, the sea-washed bones of old gods hang from the rafters. When a new god drifts into the bay, the menfolk fear nothing as they reach for their spears, but capturing her may be their last act of reckless bravado. Her very presence brings dissent and madness. Her voice threatens to tear the starving, angry community apart. Setting a siege of relentless horror against the backdrop of brine and blood, Lure blurs the line between natural disaster and self-destruction. So there you go. If you want something about an angry sea goddess, this looks like it. Lure by Tim McGregor. And next up I have this small press title called Head Case. And the authors are Ken McGregor, no relation to the previous Tim McGregor. For one thing, he's MacGregor here. And Carrie Lipp are the authors. I met Ken at the conference, very nice guy. And this appears to be kind of a something sort of patterned after like John Carpenter's Vampires, which was actually John Stakely's Vampires. A kind of action-centric vampire story. I mentioned that the cover looked a little bit Western, Ken said, well, that wasn't really quite the vibe we were going for, but it's close. And so, anyway, this one just says Johnny Headcase, big, tough as nails, and surprisingly quick, especially with a gun and a roll of quarters. When he finds out vampires have invaded his town, he doesn't hesitate to fight back. Pretty soon, though, he realizes just how many there are and calls in reinforcements. And then he gets this little, I guess, super team of vampire fighters together and they go at it. All right. Yeah, it seems like it kind of has maybe something of a Sam Raimi, wacky quality to it. But Headcase, and then something else that he had with it was this tiny little booklet called Headcase Origins, which I guess is some like prequel short stories to, kind of establish the lore of the world or anything like that. But there you go. And next up is a book by Zachary Ashford, who is an Australian writer who was there. This book is called Polyphemus, and this appears to be a rock music themed horror novel. It says, when lead vocalist of Polyphemus Stephen Oakes' near-fatal onstage overdose leaves them under pressure from their label, the band's remaining members must find a new vocalist, pick up the pieces, and forge on without him. Unfortunately, he's fresh from rehab and desperate to reunite with his old band. In fact, he's so desperate that he'll bargain with dark forces and sacrifice everything and anyone. After the final encore is played and the house lights come down, there is no telling who will remain or who they'll be in allegiance to. For Polyphemus, obsession costs far more than mere murder. My goodness. Okay, well, there you go. Polyphemus by Zachary Ashford. Zachary said that this was actually going to be like formally out, not until July. He just happened to have some at the show. But next up, this next one was given to me very generously by Laurel Hightower, who has a story in this one. This is an anthology called Hell Hath Only Fury. And this is essentially a collection of short stories inspired, I guess, just by the recent overturning of Roe v. Wade. And Laurel read her story out of this one, and it was a very, very funny kind of satire of, what happens if the roles were reversed kind of a thing. But anyway, yeah, so if you want to kind of like get your aggression out, over recent abortion rulings and what have you, then Hell Hath Only Fury is the book for you. Let's see, it's got Stories of Warriors, because when all they give us is hell, we will respond with only fury. It's a charity anthology for the benefit of abortion services in the United States of America following the overturning of Roe v. Wade, okay? And a ton of writers in here. So Hell Hath Only Fury. Next up is a novel called Cosmovore. The author is R.C. Housen, who was also there, of course. And this one says the year is 1993. Esmeralda has been living on the fringes of society for as long as she can remember, until an incident unlocks a cache of nightmarish memories. Visions of a bizarre town in the desert, shadowy recollections of a mysterious woman, the pain of an ultimate betrayal, and the shame of a bargain made in blood. Now she must confront a twisted world where abominations indulge in sadistic pleasures. There she will learn the secrets of the ravenous cosmos. Come see. Okay then, so Cosmic Horror from Central Texas. This is Cosmovore by R.C. Housen. Next up is one I picked up from the author again. This is a book called The Ghost Tracks. The author is Celso Hurtado. He is local to San Antonio. And this is a book based on kind of this ghostly urban legend about how apparently there was a railroad crossing, where a school bus got obliterated by the train. And today, if you, pull up onto the train tracks and stop, the ghosts of the children will try to push your car, the rest of the way across. So, anyway, that's the urban legend. Anyway, in the novel, let's see, what has an inner flap thing? Yes, Erasmo Cruz is from the wrong side of the tracks. His dad was a junkie who overdosed. His mom chose to run off rather than raise him. His only passion is the supernatural, and his only family is his grandmother, whose aches and pains, he soon learns, aren't just from old age, but from cancer. Desperate to help his grandmother pay for treatment, Erasmo sets up shop as a paranormal investigator. After witnessing a series of inexplicable events, he must uncover the truth behind his client's seemingly impossible claims. From hauntings to exorcisms, Erasmo soon finds that San Antonio is a much scarier place than even he knew. So, he's going, I guess, he's going to reference a whole lot of the local legends and ghost stories from the San Antonio area. But this is The Ghost Tracks by Celso Hurtado. Now, all of the rest of the books for this little haul are from Ghoulish Books imprint themselves, the hosts of the conference. And we're starting out with Like Real. This is by Shelley Lyons. Doesn't look very horror-y, but just wait. It says, in Shelley Lyons' debut novel, Like Real, Vic Moss, Kenjutsu hobbyist and clueless Lothario, lets vanity dictate his decision to acquire an experimental new-tech prosthesis that promises to evolve into a seamless, realistic-looking hand. Instead, it tears from his body, transforms into his clone, and pursues a relationship with the same woman Vic has in his crosshairs, forcing Vic to kill or be replaced. This mind-bending body horror rom-com is a rollicking Cronenbergian genre splice of idle hands and how to lose a guy in 10 days. Yep, you heard me correctly. It's freaky, it's fun, it's Like Real. Okay, so there you go, Like Real by Shelley Lyons. Next up, this is one that I've been wanting to read for some time. I've been wanting to start reading some Danger Slater because he seemed just like a fascinating guy. And didn't actually really get a chance to talk to him at the conference, even though he was there. But this is his newest book called Moonfellows. And it's a bit of an alternate history. It says, Washington, D.C., 1906, the inaugural mission of the Moonfellow program, a chance to shape the future of civilization as we know it, our first tentative steps out into the stars. It was a complete and unequivocal disaster. Now, a hapless gravedigger finds himself among the handful of survivors stranded on the lunar surface, forced to contend with madness, conspiracies, and whatever the fuck that thing is on the dark side, picking them off one by one. This is the 100% true-ish story of the brave men and women we abandoned on the moon. So there you go, Moonfellows. I guess a bunch of early Edwardians or late Victorians making it to the moon and having a bad time by Danger Slater. Next up we have The Forest. This book is by Lisa Quigley. And, as you see, very moody looking, nature horror perhaps. Everyone in Edgewood believes that their annual ties at the Fall Festival are what purchase Edgewood's safety. But as Faye and her husband prepared to take over as town stewards, a long tradition carried out by her family for generations, they learn the terrible truth. In order to guarantee the town's safety, the farce demands, of course, an unthinkable sacrifice. In the midst of everything, Faye is secretly battling debilitating postpartum anxiety that makes her all the more terrified to leave the safe cocoon of her enchanted town. When everything turns against her, including her own husband, Faye is forced to flee with her infant son into the forest. She must face whatever lurks there, and, perhaps most frightening of all, the dark torments of her own mind. Okay, so a bit of folk horror, but also kind of urban, though. But The Forest by Lisa Quigley. Next up is a book called Conjuring the Witch. It's the new book by Jessica Leonard, who wrote a book prior to this one called Antioch, which I have and desperately want to get into. But anyway, the endless story, right? This one, as you might have guessed, is a witch tale. There are witches in the woods. These are the words the Reverend of the Lillian Assembly of Our Lord repeats to his parishioners each week. Steve and Nicole Warby think it's just a metaphor, until Nicole takes a walk in those woods and comes back, changed. Something came out of them with her, and the simple small-town life they've always known is forever altered when they discover the dark secrets buried deep, and those intent on keeping them there. Fearing for his wife's sanity and his own comfortable status in the church, Steve is unsure if he wants to help or ignore the problems. The Reverend believes there are witches in the woods, and he thinks Nicole is only the most recent. Conjuring the Witch is a dark, haunted story about what those in power are willing to do to stay in power, and the sins we convince ourselves are forgivable. Okay, and this is Conjuring the Witch by Jessica Leonard. And finally, we have We Need to Do Something, a book by Max Booth III, who is also the co-publisher at Ghoulish Books. And of course, he was very much in evidence there at the conference. This one, as I understand, is also now a Hulu movie. So I'm going to, I guess, read this and then watch the movie on Hulu. So it says, a family on the verge of self-destruction finds themselves isolated in their bathroom during a tornado warning. Okay, and that's kind of really all it says. So it's very kind of to the point, high concept premise there. So we need to do something. I think the do something would be get the F out of the house. But of course, you don't want to do that in a tornado. That's bad news. But oh well, whatever you do, maybe check out the book. Good segue there, Thomas. We Need to Do Something by Max Booth III. And there you have it. Those are the books that I hauled from the Ghoulish Books Festival. And I got to tell you, I am looking forward to next year and the year after that. And I hope it is. On the one hand, I feel, I've said this before on my previous kind of bulletin video, that, I feel on the one hand, like I really do want this conference to become big and successful for them so they can keep having it and keep having it. But at the same time, I'm kind of selfish in that I'd like it to stay small and intimate and not get too big. Always kind of retain this feeling of just a little gathering of fans, because that was so nice and so relaxed, right? There was none of this hectic, crazy rush that you get with, very big conventions. So anyway, let me know which of those looks most interesting and exciting to you and which you would like to see me prioritize for review, just like a regular mailbag. Anyway, if you enjoyed watching, please hit the like button, share the video far and wide with all of your SFF and horror reading friends, and above all, please subscribe. If you have not done so, that's how the channel grows. You can also support the channel at my TeePublic store and at my Patreon, where recruits into Rick's Army get occasional little perks like early access to some of my videos, but also, mostly, the Patreon money is to help me pay Matt Olson, my brilliantly gifted, talented channel artist who has been with me ever since the beginning of this channel. I'm so, blessed to have him and his work enhancing my channel. So that additional support is greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. I also want to thank all the rest of you guys for being the very best viewers in all of BookTube, and until I see all of you next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and happy reading.